Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and we're joined by our ace reporter, Phil Sharkey, president and owner of the Higher Authority. As always, welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Jonathan. Always my pleasure to speak with you every segment that we have together. And as we're discussing actually off the air there a little bit, I think we have an interesting topic to go over today.
Sure. So you want to lead us in and tell us what topic is all about?
I do, Jonathan. As again, we were just discussing, I'm going to talk to you about why I think drug screening is a necessary component of a background check today. And again, not just for the positions that are no-brainers, such as DOT truck drivers or bus drivers or people who drive a vehicle for a living or fly an airplane or people who work for a tree cutting service. I believe that drug screening should be required for most positions today. And I think I have stats here that'll back me up. But the key comes down to me is impairment. As we're just talking about, I get people in my face and wagging their finger at me and then saying, Phil, marijuana is not illegal. And I go, Mr. Applicant, I know that, but it's not a question of illegality. It's a question of impairment. And if you're not in condition to do your job, I don't care, Jonathan, if it's an important position like a high-tech flying a plane position, or if you're someone that's you're going to trust to run the show at your business or to handle the office work. If you're impaired, you're impaired. So I'm going to go over some stats with you. And I know there's counterpoints, and I know I get a lot of this is big brother too far type of thinking.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I mean, clearly the case against impairment, but playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, I think question is how long is the impairment? Somebody I don't know how long alcohol stays in the system. I'm not an expert in any of it, but from the time of consumption to doing your job, maybe days and days, and whether there's impairment. I think comes into question there. So let's go with some of the stats that you want to share and let's talk about it. I think that's part of what we do when we interview people with the counterpoint sometimes.
That sounds perfect, Jonathan. So the first reason is going to be the cost of employers, the cost of all of us in society, because drug screening helps reduce costs in regards to workplace safety. And we have a report here from the NIDA, which is the National Institute on Drug Abuse, and they say that it's estimated that employers right now, as of last year's stats, spend over $276 billion annually in direct medical costs, loss of productivity from individuals, absenteeism, and increased health costs for people that are impaired or on some type of drug in the workplace. So again, $276 billion a year is the number that they've come up with. It's a huge number. And if you're a small employer like myself, we have 7 employees, and I can't afford it's difficult enough if people are out sick because they're sick. If they're out impaired or if they're on the job, halfway on the job, I can't have that. I need you focused and ready to work for me. So
no question, real material impact on business. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Then they also come up with that 50% of the workers' comp claims are related to workplace substance abuse. Substance abuse contributes to productivity being 33% lower than it would be otherwise. And again, these aren't my stats. These are from the NIDA. Substance abuse can lead to 2.5 times the likelihood that an employee will miss 8 or more days of work annually. So again,
I'm just curious that those statistics that you're citing are based on what types of substances? Because substance use is a pretty broad term.
It is indeed. They consider the top 10 substances on the drug screen. Most of the ones are the ones we know about. Like the top 5 are amphetamines, cocaine, marijuana, opiates, and phencyclidine, which is PCB. Also includes barbiturates, benzocyphene, some words here that are tough for me, methadone, methaqualone, and the last one is proxapinephrine. So those are the top 10 drugs that they used in this test environment.
So these studies are not including alcohol because we know that people can be abusing alcohol in the workplace too. So
absolutely, that surely can, and many employers do test for alcohol as well as part of the pre-employment screening environment. And as we talked about, as far as the other side of things, if you do indulge and you have some weekend parties, etc., I'll give you some stats. Most pre-employment screens are a urine test. Urine is the most common because it's the most inexpensive, Jonathan, but it does have a shorter window as far as testing drugs in someone's system. A hair follicle is a much more exclusive test, but they're more expensive. And then finally, there's also there's 2 more. There's a saliva test, and then there's a blood test. Blood tests they're not going to do because it's very invasive in a person. No need for a person to have a needle jammed into them for employment purposes. Very invasive. As we talked about with the urine screen, here's some stats for the people out here who might be concerned. Marijuana generally stays 3 days in your system if it's a single use, 5 to 7 days if you're a moderate 4 times a week type of person, 10 to 15 days if you're a daily user, and 30 plus days if you're heavy. So again, not every employer tests, but if they do test, these are the facts. You and I were talking off air about, if you happen to do whatever you want to do on the weekends and your drug screen is Monday morning, that's something else I would tell people. We never surprise, we never pop in. It's not a big brother situation. Your drug screen through our purposes is always notified. It'll be next Monday through Wednesday of a 3-day period. People are not caught by surprise. When they go in and fill out their job application, they'll be notified shortly thereafter, and it'll probably be a three business day window after that. So again, I understand that people do give me the pushback, but my pushback to them would be that we also deserve to have a productive workplace. I don't care if it's fast food and they're working on the fryer later and they push you into the fryer later because they're not functioning well. We have that yin and yang in today's environment.
Curious, you talk about pushback. Where does the pushback come from?
I get a lot
of applicants, or is it from clients?
Well, not clients.
Yeah.
Clients are usually on board. Sometimes they'll inquire as we get into the process of what we should do for them. Applicants for sure. And again, I get the feeling right away where they scold me and lecture me that marijuana is not illegal in Massachusetts. And I know that. And again, it's not a question of illegality. It's a question of your ability to do the job and be functioning. And then we do get it from other entities who feel that that's an invasion in privacy. And I always say the door works both ways. It's the employers decide that they need this type of screening, then They're not invading your privacy. This is just a requirement to work for them. They may require you have a 4-year college degree. They may require other aspects, and they may require that you're substantially clean and not currently on any substance. So again, no surprises. It's in the pre-employment arena. For other drugs, cocaine stays in the system 2 to 4 days for the urine test, amphetamines 2 days, and opiates 2 days. So the people out there who might be wanting to get around the drug screen, that's usually the general time frame of how the system stay in. We do also occasionally, Jonathan, tests for a random situation. Something might have happened. We have some clients who drive, and if there's an accident, they immediately have to have a urinalysis. It's just a requirement of insurance coverage and the law. Other than that, no one should be surprised by a drug screen, but this is why I strongly believe it's necessary. And I do understand that we're not trying to invade, and I do understand that alcohol is a factor just like it is marijuana or other substances. So
yeah, it's often amazing. I've actually firsthand experienced and witnessed this. People who are, I guess addicted would be the term to alcohol and using it throughout the day and masking it continually. I can remember experiencing that. It was kind of shocking. It was quite obvious to me, and why it wasn't obvious to everybody else was sort of surprising.
There's actually, and employers have dealt for a longer period of time with alcohol and functioning alcoholics that can do their job fairly well. Of course, I might argue how much better would they do their job if they weren't, under the influence. They might be even better at the job. So as a society, we've had a longer period of time of handling that. And I also think the marijuana, where it can stay in your system longer than alcohol, is a factor for people who, happen to have a fun weekend and then they have work Monday morning. Now, again, this is in a pre-employment environment where we're not catching anyone by surprise. So to me, there's a questions of your intelligence. If I'm going to tell you, Jonathan, I'm testing you on Monday and you decide to, indulge over the weekend, all I can do is sort of shrug my shoulders and be not surprised that you had a positive test.
So I'm curious, and the thing that comes to my mind, and this may be where it gets a little bit gray, is what happens in the event, and I'm not quite sure what the distinction is between medical and non-medical. If somebody has a license for medical and they disclose that, what happens in that environment? Are we dealing with the same issue, or?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the first thing that happens when you do have a positive test is the person gets to speak with an MRO, that's a medical review officer, and they have a chance to discuss their results before I get them and our clients get the results. So if there's a medical marijuana card, and if there's some people who may test for an anxiety medication or something they're on, they have every right to explain themselves. And if they have a medical condition where it's a requirement of their condition, they get what's called, sort of a green pass, where it's noted, but there's a reason for there's the substance in their body, and it's going to be continually be in their body. So again, not infringing anyone's rights, not trying to come down and be the bad guys behind the door, but these
No,
are
it's fascinating and complex because there's no cut and dry answer, and there's two sides to every, as we all see. And it's not one of these situations where, and in this case, it's a state by state issue, right? Because there's legality in certain states and not in others. And
there's federal laws as well, but the state by state, like marijuana is allowed in Massachusetts and it's not in other states. So it's a state by state situation, and it comes down to the decision of the employer. I know myself, I could not have that. And not trying to exclude anyone, but I need someone on the job who's focused and ready to go. And I think a background check is all about acquiring as much information for you and your entrepreneurs and your employers before they pull that trigger and decide who's the best fit.
no, it's interesting, and I guess constitutionally whether that gets challenged. Just wondering, out loud. I mean, you can deny somebody employment for any particular reason, and you don't necessarily have to provide a reason. But that is, I think, as you've cited many times in our interviews, it's one piece of the whole puzzle.
Absolutely, and again, you don't want to be discriminatory. You have to be consistent in your policy. If you're doing a drug screen for a position of management, then it can't change it by weight, religion, color, because they took your parking spot on the way in. You just have to be consistent in your hiring practices, and then that's the rules of the game.
Excellent, Phil. Phil Sharkey, President and CEO of the Hire Authority. Always a pleasure to learn and to listen to you. If people want to reach out, find out more about this or other issues related to pre-employment screening, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, Jonathan, right on the web, it's hireauth.com. That's short for Hire Authority. Email is psharkey, my name, at hireauth.com. And again, we do see about 33% of our background checks turn up with fraudulent information. So it's a necessary line of work, in my opinion.
That's an unbelievable statistic, and it probably speaks to general population. People are lying about 30% of everything going on in their lives. So it's we can thank social media for that one.
Absolutely, John. There's no doubt about it. And again, I just want to leave you with this: is what's driving me crazy about our country now is that we seem to accept things. If it's George Santos, whoever we accept, like it's almost like a joke. It's not. I can't have people coming into my office lying to me, shaking your hand. Nice to meet you, Jonathan. I'm lying to you today on hiring day. Trust me, going forward, it just doesn't work.
Absolutely, and we have it going on in the highest offices in the land, and each and every day some sort of committee is meeting to find out the truth, and it seems it depends which side you're on as to whether you believe the truth or not. So
absolutely,
always fascinating stuff. Phil Sharkey, President and owner of the Hire Authority, thank you for joining us on Radio Entrepreneurs.